All right, hi. So I wanted to start today by telling you a story about Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh. Van Gogh is a famous Dutch painter. Some people say he's probably the best painter of all time. Most of those people will be in arguments with people who say Rembrandt's the best painter of all time. During his most prolific period, Van Gogh painted almost 900 works, including landscapes, self-portraits, sunflowers, and more. His Starry Night painting, I'm sure you've heard of, is available as cell phone cases, cross-stitch patterns, and cosmetic items in video games. Like if you want to play Apex Legends and you want to have Starry Night on your machine gun, you can do that. There are movies, books, and TV shows about him, including my all-time favorite episode of Doctor Who. Van Gogh's life, however, is really sad. There's all kinds of media. I'm sure you've picked it up sometime. While he was alive, he only sold a single painting to a family member. He held a plethora of jobs. First, he worked at his uncle's art studio and got fired. And then he was a teacher and got fired. And then he was a preacher and got fired. I taught at high school. I did not get fired. I taught art, so I know about Van Gogh. You've maybe heard that Van Gogh cut his ear off. There are lots of theories about how that happened. My personal favorite is not like the most welcome, but it is my favorite. And it's that Paul Gauguin, who is a French painter, got in a fight with Van Gogh when they were roommates. They got in a duel like with swords, and Gauguin cut his ear off. And in order to save the friendship, Van Gogh like told everybody he did it. So that's my favorite. So how is it possible that one man with such a brilliant body of work was unable to make a living painting? Like Van Gogh's works, many design systems are objectively well made, useful, and even beautiful, but also, like Van Gogh's works, design systems can be hard to get people to buy into. So how do we, as content creators, do what Van Gogh couldn't and get people to buy our paintings? I mean, design systems. Hi, I'm Catherine. I am a full-stack developer, whatever that means. I work at Sparkbox. We're a web design and development consultant in Dayton, Ohio. This is me on Twitter. I use she, her pronouns. I've spent most of my last couple years building a single enterprise-level design system for an e-commerce website that supports a multitude of JavaScript frameworks, the largest of which is React. Before we get into problems and solutions, let's make sure we're all on the same page with terminology. This is a bit I stole from Folding Ideas, which is a great channel on YouTube if you enjoy extremely long format video essays. Check that out if you do. If not, don't. All right, so what is a design system? The origins of a design system started in print with what any classically trained graphic designer or writer may know of as a style guide. According to the 99 Designs blog, a brand style guide is a document that codifies how an organization presents itself to the world. Put another way, it's a reference tool that helps maintain consistency by demonstrating what a brand looks, feels, and sounds like. I promise you I'm not going to read your slides. I think we can translate that definition almost word for word to the web. But we have a few others. In 2018, Sparkbox, the company I work for, put together a design system survey in order to chip away at the ambiguity around one of our core technologies. Their survey states that design systems are living code bases of front-end components that solve real-life problems for enterprise organizations, agencies, and companies of all sizes. I'll be referencing this survey more. If you want to read the complete thing, you can go to designsystemsurvey.csparkbox.com. A well-thought design system can provide live, interactive examples of often used components. It can assist the rapid buildup of new pages and applications and ensure brand consistency and uniformity across multiple digital formats. A design system can be an architecture device that provides both brand expression and completed components. It can be a pattern library, a place to copy and paste code snippets, or a style guide providing color palette, fonts, iconography, animations, as well as tone and voice guidelines, and so much more. Beyond design system, I say the word subscriber quite a bit. In this case, a subscriber is someone who will implement the design system on a larger body of work. A subscriber can be a developer, a designer, copywriter, product manager, product owner. These subgroups all have different needs, and it may be worthwhile to identify which groups have a vested interest in each specific area of your own system. Whatever a design system means to you and your team, eventually we all ask the question, how do we encourage people to keep using our design systems? So what's the problem? So I'm not here to sell you on a design system. There are plenty of resources to help you decide if it's the right choice for your team. I would be more than happy to have a chat with you to talk about this later if you're considering it. But instead, let's focus on the challenges of getting people to use the cool thing we built. Even if you aren't working on a design system, I hope you find some worth in some of the things I'm going to talk about. The design system I've personally been working on for nearly 3 years now is not new. It was first thought of in 2015 and released to beta in early 2016. We've gone through 6 major versions. That's 6 releases of exciting new components and messy breaking changes. We've had huge successes, such as changing every instance of a major brand color or the entire font profile of multiple brands at almost the flip of a switch. We've had huge failures, components that go unused or outdated quickly, JavaScript that does nothing but sit in a repository, or a number of late-night patch releases. I still end up asking myself this question on a regular basis. The Sparkbox Design System Survey asked the question, why do you think your design system failed? There were a lot of answers, from the lack of executive champion to funding issues. But in my mind, all of these answers boil down to one thing. These failing design systems were not treated as products. In order to convince subscribers to use your design system, you must treat it like a product. That's it. From here on out, the rest should probably make sense. If we give our design systems the same attention we give any other product we build, they have a much higher chance of long-term success. So your design system is your desirable, funded, teachable, attentive, documented, adaptable, branded product. So let's build a product that is all of this, and maybe people will want to use it, but no promises. All right, let's pick apart that giant list of adjectives, starting with desirable. The first step to having a good design system is to have a good design system. A desirable design system is one people want to use. People will want to use it if it solves one or more problems they already have. Okay, that's easy. Solve everyone's problems, and then they'll use the thing we built. How do we do that, though? How do we identify the frustration points of our subscribers? Here are a few ideas. If your design system team is separate from your product development team, attend the product team stand-ups or feature planning meetings. This gives your team an insider's perspective, someone on the ground, grassroots style, to identify potential pressure points before they become problems. The team I work with calls this role an ambassador. Decide if a story will affect stakeholders in a meaningful way. If yes, we have what we call a stakeholder interview. Who has a stake in how this story plays out? Assign one person to run the interview. Often this includes a demo and questions you've developed in advance. The rest of the contributing team should attend, but their goal is to observe, learn, and ask questions, not to have discussion or try and persuade the interviewee. Spend as much time as possible on the stakeholders' thoughts, as your time with them is limited and their time is valuable. Ultimately, your design system team will make a decision on its own, but its decision should be informed by the information gathered in the stakeholder interview. The decision may simply be a confirmation of the path you've already chosen. Alternatively, I want to point out HubSpot's rotating design system team. In this blog post, HubSpot explains that their process for creating a design system team is to dedicate hours from product team members on a rotating 6-month schedule. The idea is that if the design system is owned by all, everyone has the opportunity to create something they'll want to use. So there's a ton of context that comes from rotating members onto a team while spending time as a subscriber. Team members have an intimate understanding of subscriber problems. If your organization can accomplish this or something like it, I think that's a really brilliant option. No matter how you accomplish it, the trust gained by creating something desirable for subscribers is priceless for a design system. This has encouraged adoption of our system by giving our subscribers something they really want. Nothing makes a team bump a version faster than finding out the solve to their current woes lies within the next release. All right. If you want a team to take your design system seriously, try taking it seriously yourself. Having a funded product with a committed product owner or development team will help users treat your design system as real. When an organization spends money, they expect to get something. A budget requires a design system to produce deliverables on a regular schedule. These deliverables are most often going to be a subscriber shipping something built with a design system content. Identifying deliverables for your design system turns into deadlines for those deliverables. I want new form components, but I need them by the summer. Deadlines will turn into project sprints and roadmaps. In other words, deliverables will establish a process. This is the Pluralsight design system. They do a really nice job of documenting their roadmap. They not only have links to their soon-to-be-built components, but there is an open link to their project board and repository. So you can see up at the top that you can click on what they're working on. Finding the budget to support even a part-time team of designers, developers, and project managers on your idea of a design system may seem difficult or even impossible at first. So look for funding in interesting places. UX and design have a potential vested interest, as a design system often creates consistency throughout branded experiences. If your team has an R&D budget, that can be a great place to create a startup or a skunkworks kind of project. Or if your team works under one of the many models that makes time for tech debt, perhaps your design system can be built alongside refactoring duplicate components. If there's truly no funding to be had, attempt to find people who have a personal stake in the success of a system and work on a proof of concept. But as soon as you have a proof of concept, look for funding again. Funded design systems succeed because there is a dedicated team building and improving the system. We all have side projects. They're all sitting alone. They're forgotten in repositories. Don't let a design system be that. A successful design system team does not pass off the system as updates happen. Rather, they support subscribers throughout the entire adoption process. That is, your design system should be teachable. Subscriber needs, within reason, are always at the top of our priorities. Teaching people to use a design system takes a lot of time and effort. Education pays off, though, as knowledge of your design system becomes ingrained in your subscribers' team culture. We try to be available to pair with developers and designers using what we've built. Twice a week, my current team holds office hours at 2 different times a day in case people have recurring meetings, where subscribers can come hang out with us and ask us questions about the system. If you have office hours, hold them in a location where pairing is easy, so lots of monitors, laptops, table to stand around, either online or in person. So we also have remote teams, we have an open Zoom, we have calls where people can hear us. Keeping good release notes is a great starting point for sharing information between teams. So I like to read things, I don't like to talk to people. My very smart coworker, Casey, has this awesome blog post about writing good release notes. Check this one out. I think I reference it in every talk I do. Atlassian's design system has a changelog on their main page. It's written to easy to understand human terms, and I'm a fan. When your design system has a new feature, present it. Every single week, my current team has a learning session called UI Guild. It's across all product teams. There are like 60 developers in this meeting. Our team tries to share whenever we have something new. One of our newest efforts as a team has been working in a virtual learning library, which is a repository of recorded knowledge. Whenever we teach or demo something while in meetings or pairing or whatever, we try to record it and add the link to a common repository. This way, people can teach themselves on their own as needed. Information is no longer bottlenecked with a single person. Our library lives in our wiki, and there's a link in the chat channels. Virtual Learning Library is an excellent tool for onboarding, by the way. If you bring new developers onto your team, like, hey, go watch the videos for 2 days and let me know when you have questions. All of these things make using a design system easier by limiting the roadblocks of learning. Eventually, product teams can teach one another without much intervention from you. Being present and available to your subscribers, being present and available to help your subscribers implement design system components shares the burden of change that often prevents humans from wanting to adopt new dependencies. Okay. An attentive design system is one that listens to what its subscribers are saying about it. And this may sound similar to desirable or teachable, However, being an attentive design system means really absorbing the feedback you gather. Provide a path for subscribers to submit feedback and ask questions. Our design system team set up a dedicated channel in Slack and Microsoft Teams, allowing constant contact with our subscribers. We also added a link to our documentation on our site to a Google form for those who wish to provide anonymous feedback that way. So here's Pluralsight again. Remember that example? They have this bright orange open an issue button on every single page. Full disclosure, our subscribers rarely submit feedback via the form on our site, as they prefer to reach out personally via chat or office hours whenever they have questions. Office hours and stakeholder interviews are, again, often awesome ways to encourage conversation throughout the entire process. It's important to listen, even if that feedback is that a component is broken or it doesn't work in a helpful way. Documentation is so important. If you skip on documentation while building a website, your people can probably figure it out. But if you skip on documentation while building a design system, nobody is going to use it. Having an easy-to-use UI to display the content is just as important as writing good developer documentation. Develop a plan for semantic versioning, whether it be Semver or something unique to your team. Then version components consistently so subscribers understand exactly what a version update means and what it will break. Document this very well. Everything from component class names to color variables should be named in a thoughtful way. We have whole meetings about naming things because it's so important when you make that change that it affects hundreds of developers. Deprecating mistakes in naming can make a system clunky, annoying, or even unusual. This is an actual thing we had to fix. I like to use BAM naming conventions because people smarter than me have written the documentation for that. But whatever works for your team is fine. The one thing I wish I had done and will forever do in the future when writing and developing a design system is creating a namespace from day one. So identify all of your classes, all of your variables with your design system namespace so people can blame you when they have a problem. Document it well. Design system teams are often small, and a good documentation website, affectionately called a doc site, often helps users solve their own problems without direct intervention from your team. Luckily for us, our product owner is a fantastic UX designer, as well as our biggest advocate, so our doc site looks awesome. I can't show you, just trust me. Your team may need to pull in outside resources to design documentation that is readable by humans. Spend some stakeholder interview time on your doc site as well. IBM's Carbon design system is currently my developer crush. It's something like a gold standard for React-based design systems. Carbon doesn't have the flashiest doc site, but they do have tons and tons of written guidelines. This documentation is expansive, covering all sorts of things, such as how to implement the system, onboarding for designers and developers, best practices for accessibility, content, and more, and documentation about why they made decisions. Document it. We can all empathize with discovering the tool we think will solve our problems, only to find the documentation wanting. Don't let your design system end that way. On a design system team, some endeavors, even when thoughtfully approached, are guesswork. Predicting potential brand updates, estimating upcoming component work, forecasting political decisions, or prioritizing pipeline changes. Chances are some of our guesses are going to be wrong. But what can we do to minimize the guesswork and make educated choices? For every major decision, our design system team interviews stakeholders to validate the assumptions we make. This is especially important if your design system team is not directly implementing the design's elements and components in the product environment. The goal is to make well-informed, educated guesses as often as possible. Sparkbox, the company I work for, takes great pride in our skills at forecasting and estimating engagements, so it makes sense that when we are building design systems, we aim to correctly forecast our product team's work. Recently, our design system had to grow to support many more teams building brand new React components. We haven't completely solved this problem, but we will have to stretch and reform the old system to meet the new needs, and we get better with every iteration. Sunk cost fallacy is public enemy number one as a design system ages. We spend so much time and resources building and perfecting and documenting that when something isn't working, we fight tooth and nail to keep it anyway. Be aware of the sunk cost and be willing to pivot away from things that no longer benefit your subscribers. My technical director loves to tell us to fail fast, but recognize that fast for a design system can be months or longer. And be attentive, attempt to validate every assumption with the developers, designers, and content managers who are actually using the system you're building. Iterate on the feedback you receive. All right, last one, and this is the fun one. Around Sparkbox, there's an ongoing joke that a pattern library turns into a design system once you give it a name. That might not be far from the truth, so our last adjective is the most fun. Your design system needs a brand. When a design system has a name or a brand, it can become a real product. Some of the best names are drawn from punny vernacular relevant to your team products. They probably even start as jokes. Our e-com design system for clothing brands is named after a sewing term. And Hillary Clinton's campaign design system was famously named Pantsuit after her stable outfit. Shopify's Polaris design system has some truly beautiful branding, and it's named after the guiding North Star. This site uses purple and gold throughout, and it continues the starry theme. Once you have a name, the next step is to brand your domain. An official sounding domain such as Atlassian.design or CarbonDesignSystem.com lends to instant credibility to your design system. Plus, branded domain names are way easier to remember and thus easier for the subscribers to find and use. Another of my favorite design system building strategies is Nachos by Trello. The whole system is fun and friendly with the Trello mascot, Taco the dog, leading the way. Plus, Nachos has some of the best design guidelines I have ever seen in a system. And I've looked at a lot. So if you are a designer or call yourself a designer, go look at this design system and just read some of the things they do. Branding your design system is a key step toward marketing. Consistent marketing of a design system and its updates helps keep subscribers engaged. One way our design system encourages the adoption of version updates is by creating a business case for every major or minor version. We send out email messaging announcements with links to our release notes, a quick overview of what's new and what's changed, and an answer to the question, why should I update? Writing a strong, persuasive answer to the question for every single release has improved our subscriber buy-in quite a bit. We get the product managers on our side. I wanted to come back to Van Gogh here. Van Gogh died in 1891. He did not become famous many decades after his death when some young art historian just discovered him. In fact, it was only a few years before Van Gogh's paintings started to sell. Van Gogh's works were largely inherited by his brother's widow, Jo. Jo shopped his paintings to many exhibitions, loaning it to museums, and promoting works at the ground levels. Additionally, in 1914, arguably when Van Gogh became famous, Jo published Van Gogh's life story, along with a collection of letters written by him. So funnily enough, sending newsletters worked for Van Gogh. All right, all of these adjectives combined pack a mighty product punch. Invest in your design system, build a network to support stakeholders, solve the problems of your product teams, attempt to validate every single assumption with the developers, designers, and content managers who actually use what you're building, iterate on the feedback you receive, and then we should have something people want to use. Maybe. It's hard to tell with people. That's all I've got. Thanks. Here are some resources, and so that's a slide repository, the PDFs again. I wrote a blog post on this topic, so a lot of my resources are there. It's a little outdated, it's kind of old. And then that design system survey. I have 6 minutes. Do you want me to answer questions? Yeah? Go ahead. I don't know if there's a microphone.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Have you ever faced resistance from, if you've worked with other teams outside of your direct control, if they've resisted and said, oh, design system sounds like a waste of time, we don't want to invest in this? Like, have you faced that, and how have you convinced them?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people think that Okay, so I work on largely one giant e-commerce website, right? Luckily, the buy-in to the design system by the top level people happened before I got there. So the trick there is to like convince people's bosses. Like, oh, if you don't want to do this, well, I'm going to go convince the technical director. And if he doesn't want to do it, then I'm going to go convince the head of UX. And if they don't want to do it, then I'm going to just figure out where the money is and get it on people's boards, right? So that is hard. And for a lot of teams, so luckily we work on a multi-branded website, or I do. So the design system really makes sense. But often you'll find like little tiny websites that want a design system, and maybe a design system's not the best work or the best solution to their problems, or maybe they just need like a drizzle setup with a pattern library to copy and paste from. So if you don't get buy-in from high up people, maybe start building it on one page where you can just skunkworks style copy and paste things, and like, oh, this was really helpful to our team. Look how much money we saved, and then you'll get buy-in, because buy-in follows the money. Does that answer your question? Cool. Does anyone else have a question? Let's move back there.
What about measurable?
Measurable.
Measurable. Do you guys measure or analyze the actual usage of your design systems?
Yes, measurable is really important because it belongs with, like, I love that one. Maybe I'll steal it. It's those deliverables, right? So say we're 3 years in and we have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars working on our design system. At some point, somebody's like, well, what have you been doing? Right? So a big benefit for measurable or an answer would be having a public design system. Means that other people are visiting and you can like do analysis. And you're like, oh, well, look at all these people looking at our design system. At least we're getting the name out there, right? Otherwise, so here's a statistic. When we originally had our design system, when we first started like 3 years ago, we changed the font for an entire brand. And from the idea sitting in the UX room of, I want to change this font, to us having the button on the live website, and we hit it, and it merged and deployed, and the new font is there. It took like 3.5 months. Then we recently did it again, and it took a month. And so those kind of things are really useful. We're also building a lot of React components, so they have a new website, and they have a new marketing campaign, and they have to build a form. And these people have built the form before, but then we have the form components in our design system, and they do it again, and they like spin up this new form in a day. So we're really impressing people on the ground level there, because they go and they tell their product manager, they tell their scrum master, man, I thought this was going to take me 2 weeks, but I used the design system and it only took me a day. Give me something else to do. Like, that's really measurable. It's not as easy as like performance stats. So I think like design and UX buy-in is really important, because they're the ones saying, oh, my changes happen so fast, right? Does that answer your question? You got 2 minutes. Question? Am I able to show the design system? Not on film. If you dig around on our website, you'll find it, and I can maybe show you in person, but I can't talk about it. Yeah? Anything else? You guys want to go get coffee? All right, cool. Like I said, I have business cards, and I have some vinyl decals, and maybe you can fight someone for a sticker. Bye.